instead. And I had become exactly what they never thought I could be: their boss. I stood in the gleaming lobby of Maxwell Enterprises, mop in hand, watching the executives hurry past in their designer suits. None of them gave me a second glance. To them, I was just another member of the cleaning staff, invisible in my gray uniform. If they only knew that tomorrow, I would be sitting in their boardroom, not as a janitor, but as their new CEO. My name is Marcus Chen, and I've spent the last 5 years maintaining this elaborate deception. Not just here at Maxwell Enterprises, but with my entire family. They still think I'm the family failure, the one who wasted his computer science degree to become a janitor. What they don't know is that I'm the founder and CEO of Quantum Solutions, a tech company worth over $50 million. The irony wasn't lost on me as I watched my cousin David stroke through the lobby, his Italian leather shoes clicking against the marble floor. He was Maxwell Enterprises' rising star, their youngest VP at 32. Every family gathering, he made sure everyone knew about his latest promotion, his new sports car, his luxury apartment. I just nod and smile, pretending to be impressed while he patronizingly offered to put in a good word for me with HR. "Hey, janitor." David's voice cut through my thoughts. "The men's room on the 4th floor needs attention." Chop chop. I gripped my mop tighter, swallowing my pride. "Right away, sir." As I pushed my cart toward the elevator, I could hear him chuckling with his colleagues. "That's my cousin, you know. Always told him to apply himself, but some people just don't have what it takes." If he only knew that tomorrow, Quantum Solutions would be completing its takeover of Maxwell Enterprises. After months of quiet stock acquisition and strategic planning, we finally secured enough shares to gain controlling interest. The board meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. sharp. But first, I had to survive tonight's family reunion. The annual Morrison family gathering was always an exercise in humility. Held at my Aunt Patricia's sprawling mansion in the suburbs, it was less a family celebration and more a competition of achievements. As I parked my deliberately modest Honda Civic in the driveway, I could already see the lineup of luxury vehicles: David's Porsche, my sister Olivia's Mercedes, Uncle Robert's Tesla. I straightened my intentionally cheap suit and walked inside, bracing myself for the usual barrage of condescension and helpful career advice. "Marcus." Aunt Patricia's voice carried across the marble foyer. "We were just talking about career growth. Come join us, maybe you can pick up some tips." The living room was arranged like a corporate hierarchy, the successful family members occupying the premium spots on the plush sofas, while the less accomplished were relegated to the dining chairs brought in as overflow seating. I took my usual place on the periphery next to my second cousin who worked as a high school teacher, another family disappointment. "So Marcus," David leaned forward, swirling his expensive scotch, still cleaning up at Maxwell. "You know, if you just finished that coding bootcamp I recommended, you might have made something of yourself by now." I thought about the 3 patents in my name, the revolutionary software platform I developed, the team of over 200 brilliant engineers who reported to me at Quantum. "The janitorial work pays the bills," I said mildly. My sister Olivia, an investment banker, shook her head. "I just don't understand how you can be satisfied with that life. Remember when we were kids? You were always so good with computers. What happened?" What happened was that I discovered a fundamental flaw in cybersecurity systems while still in college. Instead of following the family's prescribed path of climbing corporate ladders, I'd spent 2 years in my apartment developing a solution. They thought I was depressed, failing at life. In reality, I was building the foundation of what would become Quantum Solutions. "Not everyone is cut out for success," Uncle Robert declared, straightening his Italian silk tie. "Some people just lack ambition." I hid my smile behind my water glass. Uncle Robert was Maxwell Enterprises' CFO, and tomorrow he'd be one of the first to learn about the takeover. I wondered if he'd still think I lacked ambition then. "At least he's honest work," my mother chimed in, always trying to find a silver lining. "And he keeps his apartment clean." The room erupted in laughter at what had become a running family joke. Yes, of course the janitor keeps his place clean. They'd never visited my real home, a penthouse overlooking the city. The small apartment they knew about was just for show, part of the elaborate facade I'd maintained while building my company. Speaking of Maxwell, David set down his scotch, his expression turning serious. "Did you hear about tomorrow's board meeting? Rumor has it some tech company is trying to take over." Quantum something. I kept my face carefully neutral. Oh, nothing to worry about. Uncle Robert waved his hand dismissively. These young tech startups, they think they can just walk in and take over established companies. We'll shut it down before it gets any traction. If he only knew that Quantum Solutions had been methodically acquiring Maxwell shares through various shell companies for the past year. By tomorrow morning, we would own 51% of the company. Actually, I said, unable to resist, I heard Quantum Solutions is doing quite well. Their cybersecurity platform is revolutionary. David snorted. What would you know about it? You're a janitor. I read the tech blogs during my breaks. I shrugged, thinking about the Forbes cover story about me that would be released tomorrow. They'd been sitting on it for weeks, waiting for the takeover to be announced. The conversation moved on to more important matters. David's new yacht, Olivia's promotion, Uncle Robert's country club membership. I sat quietly, observing my family in their bubble of self-importance, knowing it would all change tomorrow. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah, my COO. Everything's set for tomorrow. Board members notified. Press release ready. You sure about this? I looked around the room at my family, still laughing about my poor life choices. Yes, I was sure. After 5 years of hiding in plain sight, it was time to show them exactly who I was. The next morning, I arrived at Maxwell Enterprises at my usual time, 6 a.m. But today, instead of pushing my cleaning cart, I carried a sleek briefcase containing the takeover documents. I'd already changed into a custom-tailored Tom Ford suit in my private office on the top floor of the building next door, where Quantum Solutions was headquartered. Sarah met me in the lobby, her heels clicking against the marble floor. Ready for this? I adjusted my tie, thinking about last night's family reunion. More than ready. The Maxwell Enterprises wardroom occupied the entire top floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city. By 8:45 a.m., the room was filling with board members, executives, and legal teams. I watched through the security feed as David arrived, radiating confidence, followed by Uncle Robert, who was frantically checking his phone. Mr. Chen, my assistant Thomas, appeared at my shoulder. They're all here. I nodded, straightening my cuffs. Time to make an entrance. At precisely 9 a.m., I walked into the boardroom. The reaction was immediate. David, halfway through some joke about the takeover attempt, froze mid-sentence. Uncle Robert's coffee cup clattered against its saucer. Marcus, David's voice cracked. What are you doing here? The cleaning staff isn't allowed in board meetings. I walked calmly to the head of the table, setting down my briefcase. Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcus Chen, CEO of Quantum Solutions. The silence was absolute. Uncle Robert's face had turned an interesting shade of gray. David's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. This is ridiculous, David finally sputtered. You're a janitor. You clean toilets. I smiled, nodding to Sarah, who began distributing documents. Actually, I was never a janitor. That was just a cover while we acquired controlling interest in Maxwell Enterprises. As of this morning, Quantum Solutions owns 51% of your company's shares. Uncle Robert lunged for the documents, his hands shaking as he flipped through the pages. This can't be legal. You can't be. The CEO of a $50 million tech company? I finished for him. The same company that holds 3 major cybersecurity patents. The one that's been featured in Tech Weekly as one of the most innovative startups of the decade. I pulled out the morning's copy of Forbes, my face on the cover. That Quantum Solutions? David had gone pale, no doubt remembering every condescending comment, every joke at my expense. But your apartment, your car. We're props, I said simply, just like the janitor's uniform. Tell me, cousin, did you ever wonder why a janitor had full access to every floor of the building? Why security never questioned my presence in executive areas after hours? The board members were shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Many of them had seen me cleaning their offices, never bothering to look beyond the gray uniform. As of now, I continued, I'm assuming control of Maxwell Enterprises. There will be some changes in leadership. I looked directly at Uncle Robert, starting with the executive team. Uncle Robert shot to his feet. You can't do this. I'm calling your mother. I couldn't help but laugh. Go ahead. She's probably still congratulating herself on having one successful child, Olivia. Wait until she sees the Forbes article. Just then, as if on cue, phones around the room started buzzing. The story had broken. I watched as board members and executives pulled out their phones, their expressions changing as they read about the brilliant young CEO who had built a tech empire while working undercover as a janitor. David was still shaking his head in disbelief. 5 years? You spent 5 years pretending to be a janitor just for this moment? No, I corrected him. I spent 5 years building a successful company while you and the rest of the family were too busy looking down on me to notice. The janitor thing? That was just to ensure no one interfered while we acquired shares in Maxwell Enterprises. My phone buzzed. A text from Olivia. You just saw Forbes. Call me. Followed immediately by one from my mother. Marcus, what is going on? Your Aunt Patricia is having a fit. I set my phone aside and addressed the room. Now, shall we discuss the future of Maxwell Enterprises? I have some ideas about modernizing your cybersecurity infrastructure. The next few hours were a blur of signatures, legal discussions, and shocked revelations. By lunch, word had spread throughout the building. The cleaning staff, my former colleagues who had always treated me with kindness, were among the first to congratulate me. Many of them knew something was different about me, they just hadn't known what. Around 2 p.m., my family started arriving at the office, demanding explanations. Aunt Patricia nearly fainted when security escorted her to my new office, the CEO's suite with its view of the city skyline. But you're a janitor, she kept repeating, staring at my nameplate. Was a janitor, I corrected her. Now I'm your boss. Well, technically, I'm David's boss's boss's boss. My mother arrived last, clutching the Forbes magazine. She looked like she'd been crying. Why didn't you tell us? I leaned back in my chair, thinking about all the family dinners where they'd mocked my poor life choices, all the reunions where they treated me like a cautionary tale. Would you have believed me? I asked quietly, or would you have tried to control it like everything else? Tell me how to run my company? Push me to give jobs to family members? She had no answer for that. Over the next few weeks, the story of the undercover CEO went viral. Business magazines hailed it as a brilliant strategic move, gaining inside access to a target company while keeping the competition completely unaware. My family, meanwhile, had to adjust to a new reality. David was demoted to middle management, where he finally had to prove his actual worth without family connections. Uncle Robert took early retirement rather than work under his janitor nephew. Aunt Patricia stopped hosting family reunions, claiming she needed time to process everything. But the biggest change was in how they looked at me. Gone were the condescending smiles, the patronizing advice, the jokes about my career choices. Now they looked at me with a mixture of respect, fear, and regret. 1 month after the takeover, I hosted a company-wide meeting to announce some changes. As I stood at the podium, looking out over the assembled employees, I spotted my old cleaning cart tucked away in a corner of the lobby. I smiled, remembering all the nights I pushed it through these halls, quietly building my empire while everyone else was too busy looking down their noses to notice. Success, I've learned, doesn't always wear a suit. Sometimes it pushes a mop, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. And sometimes the best revenge isn't about proving others wrong, it's about proving yourself right. My phone buzzed with another text from Olivia. Family dinner at Mom's this Sunday. Please come, we have a lot to make up for. I typed a quick reply. I'll be there, but this time, I'm wearing a suit. The morning of my wedding dawned bright and clear, but my stomach was in knots. Not from the usual pre-wedding jitters, but because I knew what was coming. My family would be there, and they never missed an opportunity to remind me of my perceived failures. I stood in the modest bridal suite of the local country club, smoothing down my simple white dress. It wasn't a designer label or dripping with crystals, but it was elegant and exactly what I wanted. My best friend Kate adjusted my veil, her eyes meeting mine in the mirror. You look beautiful, Sophia, she said firmly, reading the anxiety on my face. Don't let them get to you today. I forced a smile, but we both knew who them meant. The Martinez family, my family, where success was measured only by the size of your house and the brand of your car. Where my sister Isabella's job as vice president at Martinez Technologies made her the golden child, while my own achievements remained carefully hid. A knock at the door made me flinch. Sophia, are you decent? My mother's voice carried that familiar note of disappointment she perfected over the years. Come in, Mom. She entered, wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than my entire wedding budget. Her eyes swept over me, cataloging every detail she found lacking. Behind her, Isabella sauntered in, draped in haute couture. "Oh, Sophia," my mother sighed, shaking her head. "Couldn't you have at least tried to find something more suitable? This looks like it came from a department store." "It's perfect for her, Mother," Isabella smirked. "After all, what else can you expect from someone who works as a business consultant?" She made air quotes around my job title. "At least James loves her enough to marry her, despite everything." If they only knew. If they had any idea that my consulting work was actually running Phoenix Industries, one of the largest technology consulting firms in the country. The same company their precious Martinez Technologies was desperately trying to secure a contract with. But they didn't know. Nobody did. I'd built my company from the ground up using a different name, keeping my success hidden for years. Even my fiancé James had only learned the truth a month ago. "The ceremony starts in an hour," my mother announced. "Try not to embarrass us too much, Sophia. The Martinez name still means something, even if you never lived up to it." After they left, Kate squeezed my shoulder. "Just a few more hours, then you can tell them everything." I nodded, touching the simple pearl necklace at my throat, the only piece of jewelry I wore besides my engagement ring. They're in for quite a surprise. The ceremony itself was beautiful in its simplicity. James waited for me at the altar, his eyes shining with love and knowledge of what was to come. We'd planned this carefully, timing everything perfectly. At the reception it started. My family worked the room, making sure everyone knew which Martinez daughter was the successful one. Isabella held court at her table, loudly discussing her latest business acquisition. "Of course, once Martinez Technology secures the Phoenix contract, we'll be unstoppable," she boasted. "I'm meeting their CEO next week. It's practically a done deal." I checked my watch. Right on time, my phone buzzed. I excused myself from the table, giving James a subtle nod. "Poor Sophia," I heard Isabella say as I walked away. "She can't even afford a proper wedding. Did you see that dress? And this venue? So quaint." My mother chimed in. "At least she found someone to marry her. Though I don't know how they'll survive on her tiny consultant salary." I stepped outside just as the sound of jet engines filled the air. Heads turned as my private jet, emblazoned with the Phoenix Industries logo, made a perfect landing on the country club's private airstrip. James appeared at my side, taking my hand. "Ready?" I squared my shoulders, feeling the weight of years of dismissal and degradation fall away. "It's time." We walked back into the reception hall, where my family was clustered by the windows, staring at the jet. Isabella's face had gone pale. That's the Phoenix Industries jet," she stammered. "What is it doing here?" I cleared my throat, and the room fell silent. "I have an announcement to make." Every eye turned to me as I stood in the center of the room, no longer the disappointing daughter, but the CEO I truly was. The next few minutes would change everything, and I was ready. "I believe we have a meeting scheduled next week, Isabella," I said calmly. "But since we're all here now, why don't we discuss that contract you're so certain about?" The color drained from her face as understanding slowly dawned. Behind her, my mother grabbed the back of a chair for support. "No," Isabella whispered. "It's not possible." But it was, and now they would finally learn just how possible it was. The silence in the reception hall was deafening. I could almost hear the wheels turning in Isabella's head as she tried to process what was happening. My mother's perfectly maintained composure cracked, her champagne glass trembling in her manicured hand. You're saying..." Isabella couldn't even finish the sentence. "Sophia Martinez Chen, CEO of Phoenix Industries," I stated clearly, my voice carrying across the stunned room. "Though you might know me better as SP Chen, the mysterious founder you've been desperately trying to meet." My father, who had been quietly standing in the corner all evening, suddenly stepped forward. "This is impossible. Phoenix Industries is a multi-billion-dollar company. You're just a consultant." I smiled, remembering all the times they dismissed my little consulting business over family dinners. "Would you like to see my business card? Or perhaps the company ownership documents? I'm sure Isabella has them somewhere in her pitch folder." Isabella's face flushed red. She had indeed brought her business materials to my wedding, hoping to network with guests. Now that same folder felt like evidence of her unwitting humiliation. The jet, My mother whispered, still staring out the window at the gleaming aircraft with my company's logo. Is mine, I confirmed, along with the other 12 in our fleet, and the building your company is trying to lease for its new headquarters. I own that too. The memories flooded back, every dismissive comment, every mockery of my career choices, every family gathering where I was treated like a cautionary tale while Isabella was praised as the model of success. 10 years ago, I continued, my voice steady. When I left Martinez Technologies to start my own business, you told everyone I failed, that I couldn't handle the pressure of a real job. What you didn't know was that I'd already secured contracts with 3 major tech companies under my business alias. James stood beside me, his hand supportive on my back. He'd discovered my secret when his investment firm tried to acquire a controlling interest in Phoenix Industries. Instead of being angry at my deception, he understood why I kept it hidden. The consulting firm you all mocked, it was just a front. Every time you bragged about Martinez Technology's success, Isabella, my company was actually providing the software infrastructure you depended on through shell corporations. Those breakthrough innovations you took credit for? They came from my development team. Isabella sank into a chair, her designer dress crumpling. The Phoenix contract, we need it. The board is counting on it. Without it, Martinez Technologies will lose its market position within 6 months. I finished for her. I know, I've seen your financials. My mother finally found her voice. Why didn't you tell us? We're family. The word family sparked something in me, years of pent-up emotions finally breaking free. Family? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Was it family when you told my college counselor not to waste time on my applications because I'd never amount to anything? Was it family when you excluded me from business dinners because I'd embarrass you? Or perhaps it was family when you told James's parents that they should reconsider the marriage because I couldn't provide the lifestyle they were accustomed to. Kate appeared at my side, handing me a folder. Inside were photos, documents, and emails. A decade's worth of evidence showing how I built my empire while my family was busy underestimating me. Your company needs this contract, I said, addressing Isabella directly. But Phoenix Industries has a strict policy against toxic corporate culture. And from what my team has observed, Martinez Technologies has some serious issues in that department. Isabella's face went from red to white. She knew exactly what I meant. Her management style was notorious for its brutality. However, I continued, I'm willing to offer you a different deal. One that could save the company, but with some significant changes in leadership. My father stepped forward, his business instincts kicking in. What kind of changes? Complete restructuring of the executive board, new management policies, and Isabella. I turned to my sister, who couldn't meet my eyes. You'll need to step down as VP. The gasps around the room were audible. Isabella jumped to her feet. You can't do this. Daddy, tell her she can't do this. But our father was a businessman first. He could see the writing on the wall. She can, and she has every right to. The question is, why would you help us at all? I looked around the room at my gathered family members, the aunts, uncles, and cousins who had witnessed years of my humiliation. They were all watching now, their expressions a mix of shock, embarrassment, and dawning respect. Because despite everything, Martinez Technologies was our grandfather's legacy. He built it from nothing, just like I built Phoenix. I won't let it fail. I paused, letting my words sink in. But I won't let it continue to be a monument to arrogance and cruelty either. I nodded to James, who began distributing sealed envelopes to key family members. Inside, you'll find the terms of Phoenix Industries' proposed restructuring of Martinez Technologies. You have until Monday to decide. My mother stood frozen, the envelope trembling in her hands. All this time, all these years. Yes, I said simply. All these years, you had 2 successful daughters. You just couldn't see past your own prejudices to recognize it. I turned to the rest of our wedding guests, many of whom were watching the scene unfold with rapt attention. Now, I believe this is still a celebration. James and I would love for you all to join us on our private island for the reception continuation. The jet can accommodate 30 passengers per trip. As if on cue, the wedding planner began coordinating with guests for the transfers. My family remained rooted in place, still processing everything that had happened. Isabella finally spoke, her voice small. The contract was never real, was it? You never intended to give it to us. No, I confirmed. But this offer is real. It's your chance to be part of something better. Your choice. I took James's hand and turned to leave for the jet. My father's voice stopped me. Sophia, I'm sorry. I looked back at him, seeing for the first time something I'd always wanted to see, respect. I know, Dad, Monday morning, 9 a.m. Don't be late. As James and I walked out to the waiting jet, I heard the whispers behind us, felt the stares. But for the first time in my life, they didn't hurt. I'd finally shown them who I really was, not the person they'd chosen to see. Kate caught up with us at the jet's stairs. That was epic. But what happens now? I smiled, looking back at the country club where my family was still huddled, their world thoroughly shaken. Now they learn that success isn't measured by how well you can tear others down, but by how many people you can lift up. James squeezed my hand as we boarded the jet, ready for the next chapter. I looked out the window at my assembled guests, my shell-shocked family, and the future stretching out before us. More than ready. After all, success is the best revenge. The jet engines roared to life, and as we took off into the sunset, I knew that my wedding day had become something more than just a celebration of love. It had become the day I finally stepped out of the shadows and into my own light. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't in keeping secrets, but in choosing the perfect moment to reveal them. And as my family would soon learn, this was just the beginning of their education in what true success looks like. It's nothing personal, Maria, Harold Barnes said, not bothering to look up from his computer as he dismissed 15 years of loyal service. We're upgrading the building's image, going more upscale. I stood in his office, still wearing my cleaning uniform, my hands raw from scrubbing floors all morning. Upscale, I repeated, trying to keep my voice steady. Yes. He finally glanced at me, his expression a practiced mix of corporate condescension and fake sympathy. The new owners want to attract more prestigious tenants. We're bringing in a professional cleaning service. I am professional, I said quietly. I've cleaned this building for 15 years. I know every inch of it. That's not the point. He sighed like I was a child failing to understand simple math. Barnes & Associates is growing. We need this building to reflect our status. You understand, don't you? I understood perfectly. I understood that the small law firm I'd watched grow from 2 attorneys to 20 no longer wanted a middle-aged Mexican woman cleaning their precious offices. I understood that all those mornings I'd arrived at 4 a.m. to make sure everything was spotless before their first client meeting meant nothing. My severance? I asked, pride making my spine straight despite the humiliation burning in my chest. 2 weeks' pay. He slid an envelope across his mahogany desk, the same desk I polished every night for years. You can finish out the week. I took the envelope, resisting the urge to tell them how many of his company's secrets I knew from emptying their trash and overhearing late-night conversations. How many confidential documents I'd seen carelessly left on desks and fax machines. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Barnes, I said instead, my accent careful and measured like my mother had taught me. Always be gracious, Maija, even when they don't deserve it. He was already back to typing on his computer, dismissing me from his mind as easily as he dismissed me from my job. I walked out of Barnes & Associates past the other offices I cleaned in the 12-story building. Accountants, insurance agents, a small tech startup. Most of them barely knew my name, though I knew everything about them. Which ones came in early, which stayed late, which were having affairs with their secretaries. My cart waited in the hallway, cleaning supplies neatly organized. 15 years of 4 a.m. starts, of back-breaking work, of being invisible unless something wasn't perfectly clean. All ended with a 2-week severance check and a casual dismissal. Mama? My daughter's voice came through my phone as I rode the elevator down. How did it go? Sophia. The reason I'd worked so hard, why I cleaned offices while studying English at night, why I'd saved every extra penny I could. They're letting me go, I said simply. Silence for a moment. Then, I'll be home in an hour. Don't cook, I'm bringing dinner. You have classes. They can wait. This is more important. I smiled despite everything. My brilliant daughter, in her 2nd year of business school, still thought having dinner with her mother was more important than her studies. At home, the small apartment I'd maintained alone since Sophia's father died 12 years ago, I sat at our tiny kitchen table and opened the severance envelope. 2 weeks' pay, $840 before taxes. barely enough for 1 month's rent. Sophia arrived with takeout from our favorite Mexican restaurant and a determined look in her eye. "This is good," she announced, setting out containers of enchiladas and rice. "Now you can finally do it." "Do what?" "Start your own business. Like you've always talked about." I shook my head. "Sophia, starting a cleaning business takes money." "Which you have," she interrupted. "I know about your savings, Mama. The account you think I don't know about." I stared at her. "How did you?" "I'm studying finance, remember? I've seen your bank statements when I help with the bills. $23,000 hidden away in that secret account." She reached for my hand across the table. "Plus the $12,000 in your regular savings. That's $35,000, Mama. Enough to start something real." She was right about the money. For 15 years, I'd saved everything I could, taking extra cleaning jobs on weekends, living as frugally as possible. The secret account was meant to be Sophia's graduate school fund, but she'd already won a full scholarship. "It's too risky," I protested. "At my age. You're 48, not dead." Sophia's eyes blazed with the same determination her father's had shown when he first asked me to marry him. "And you know more about commercial cleaning than any of those professional services Barnes is hiring." She pulled out her laptop, her most prized possession, bought with her scholarship money. "Look what I found." She showed me a website for a commercial cleaning franchise. Initial investment, $30,000. They provide training, supplies, insurance, everything you need to start. But here's the best part, you don't need it. "What do you mean?" "You already have better connections than they do. How many business owners have you talked to over the years? How many have complained about their current cleaning services?" She wasn't wrong. I'd lost count of the times I'd heard tenants complaining of the expensive cleaning services they use for their other properties, services that often did a worse job than I did. "Think about it," Sophia continued, warming to her subject. "You start small, underbid the big companies but provide better service, build a reputation. Then expand." I looked at my daughter, so confident, so certain of success. Just like her father had been. Manuel had always believed in taking risks, in building something of our own. Before cancer took him, he'd made me promise to give Sophia every opportunity possible. Maybe it was time to give myself an opportunity too. "Okay," I said slowly, "but we do this smart. No franchise fees. We start small, build slowly." Sophia's face lit up. "Really? You'll do it?" "Yes." I squeezed her hand. "But first, you help me write a letter to Mr. Barnes." The letter was simple but pointed. "Dear Mr. Barnes, thank you for 15 years of employment at Barnes & Associates. While I regret that my services no longer meet your standards, I appreciate the opportunity to have learned so much about commercial property maintenance and business operations. I will complete my final week as requested. Please ensure my replacement knows about the faulty lock on the supply closet door, the temperamental heating system on the 8th floor, and Mr. Davidson's severe dust allergies. Best regards, Maria Suarez." I hand-delivered it to his office the next morning. He'd probably never even read it. The next few weeks were a blur of activity. Sophia helped me register the business, Elite Commercial Services, a name she chose because it sounds expensive, and create professional-looking business cards and flyers. I used some of my savings to buy commercial-grade equipment, better than what I'd been using at Barnes & Associates. My first client was easy. Dr. Patel, a dentist who'd always treated me with respect when I cleaned his office in the building. When he heard I was starting my own company, he immediately hired me to clean his other 2 practices. "Finally," he said, signing the contract, "someone who knows what they're doing." Word spread. Within 2 months, I had contracts for 6 small medical offices and 3 law firms. I hired 2 workers, both experienced cleaners I knew from my years in the business. Unlike the big companies, I paid them well and treated them with respect. 6 months in, Elite Commercial Services had 15 clients and 5 employees. Sophia helped me set up proper payroll and insurance systems, using what she was learning in her business classes. Every night, she'd come home excited to show me something new she'd learned that could help the company grow. "You need to think bigger, Mama," she said one evening as we reviewed the books. "You're making more profit than Barnes & Associates pays their cleaning service and providing better quality." "How do you know what they pay?" She grinned. "I have my sources, and I know their new service is terrible. 3 complaints in the last month alone." I tried not to feel satisfied about that, but I did. especially when I heard through the grapevine that the professional service Barnes had hired was charging twice what I used to cost them. 1 year after being fired, Elite Commercial Services had 30 clients and 12 employees. We'd moved into a small office of our own, complete with a storage room for supplies and a break room for the staff. Sophia insisted on professional uniforms for everyone, dark blue with the company logo she'd designed. That's when I got the call that would change everything. "Mrs. Suarez?" The voice was unfamiliar. "This is David Chen from Meridian Property Group. We're interested in discussing your services for our entire portfolio of buildings." I sat up straighter. Meridian was one of the largest commercial property owners in the city. "Of course, Mr. Chen. I'd be happy to meet." "Actually," he interrupted, "we'd like you to come to our offices tomorrow morning. Our CEO would like to speak with you directly." The next day, I walked into Meridian's luxurious downtown headquarters wearing my best suit, another of Sophia's insistences. "You're a CEO now, Mama. Dress like one." The CEO of Meridian Property Group was not what I expected. Sarah Chin was maybe 40, dressed in a simple black dress that probably cost more than my monthly payroll. She greeted me with a firm handshake and a direct gaze. "Mrs. Suarez," she gestured to the chair across from her desk. "Thank you for coming. I've heard interesting things about your company." I sat down, back straight, channeling Sophia's confidence. "Good things, I hope." "Very good." She opened a folder on her desk. "You've taken 15 clients from Advanced Commercial Cleaning in the past year. All of them report higher satisfaction rates with your service despite your lower prices." I nodded, wondering where this was going. "Advanced Clean has been our provider for 10 years, she continued. "We have 63 properties in their portfolio, but lately their quality has been declining." My heart started beating faster. 63 properties. "We're considering making a change," Sarah said, "but I have concerns about your company's capacity to handle that volume." I met her gaze steadily. "Give me 3 buildings as a test. If we don't exceed your expectations in every way, you don't have to consider us for the rest." She smiled, a quick, sharp expression. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. She pulled out a contract. 3 buildings, 90-day trial period. If you succeed, we'll discuss the full portfolio. I read the contract carefully, just as Sophia had taught me. The terms were fair, the expectations clear. The 3 buildings were all downtown, including, I noticed, the one where Barnes and Associates had their offices. "When can you start?" Sarah asked as I signed. "Next week," I said confidently, already planning the staff expansion we'd need. 1 week. She raised an eyebrow. "That's ambitious." "I've been preparing for an opportunity like this," I replied. "My team is ready." That night, I called an emergency staff meeting at our office. All 12 of my employees came, even though it was 8 p.m. "We have an opportunity," I told them. "But I'll need everyone's help, and we'll need to hire more people fast." They didn't hesitate. Carmen, my first hire, immediately suggested her sister and cousin, both experienced cleaners. Oza knew a whole family who just moved from El Salvador, all with commercial cleaning experience. By the end of the week, we'd hired 10 new employees. Sophia helped me revise our training programs, creating detailed checklists and procedures for every task. We bought new equipment, ordered more uniforms, and set up a proper scheduling system. Our first night in the Barnes and Associates building, I made sure to be there personally. The professional service had left it in terrible shape: dust in the corners, streaky windows, trash bins overflowing. "We have a lot of work to do," I told my team, "but this is our chance to show what real professionals look like." We worked through the night, restoring the building to the standards I'd maintained for 15 years. When the first tenants arrived the next morning, they couldn't believe the difference. By the end of the 90-day trial, Meridian Properties had received so many compliments about our service that they didn't even wait for the formal review. Sarah Chen called me directly. "How quickly can you take over the rest of our portfolio?" We expanded rapidly but carefully. I insisted on maintaining our high standards, personally training each new employee. Sophia, now in her final year of business school, helped me create proper management systems and financial controls. 2 years after being fired as just a cleaner, I sat in my new office, a proper corporate suite downtown, reviewing our company's growth with Sophia. "Revenue is up 300% from last year," she reported proudly. We have 140 employees, service contracts for 87 buildings, and a waiting list of potential clients. I smiled, remembering the days of scrubbing floors at 4 a.m. and Barnes & Associates. She grinned, still complaining about every cleaning service they try. They've gone through 3 since Advanced Clean. That's when I saw it, a notice in the commercial real estate listings. The Barnes & Associates building was for sale. The owners were facing bankruptcy, looking for a quick sale. Sophia, I said slowly, what would you think about buying a building? She looked at the listing, her eyes widening. That building, can we afford it? With our current revenue and assets, I did some quick calculations. We'd need financing, but it's possible. She was already pulling up financial models on her laptop, skills she'd learned in business school now put to use for our company. If we use the company's profits as collateral and with your personal assets, yes, we could make this work. I thought about Harold Barnes, about his casual dismissal of my worth, about all the tenants who'd treated me as invisible during my years cleaning their offices. Make the calls, I told Sophia, but keep my name out of it. Use the holding company we set up. The negotiations took 2 months. The owners, desperate for cash, accepted our offer, slightly below market value but all cash, thanks to some creative financing Sophia arranged. The day we closed the deal, I waited until late afternoon, when I knew Harold Barnes would be in his office. I wore my best suit, no more cleaning uniform, and took the elevator to the 9th floor. His office door was open. He was on the phone, probably with another client he overcharged. I knocked on the doorframe. He looked up, irritation crossing his face at being interrupted, then confusion as he tried to place me. Yes, he said, covering the phone's mouthpiece. Can I help you? Hello, Mr. Barnes, I said clearly, my accent now refined by 2 years of corporate meetings. I'm here about your lease. He frowned. My lease? Are you with the property management company? In a way, I stepped into his office, the same office where he'd fired me 3 years ago. I'm the new owner of this building. The phone slipped from his hand. I enjoyed watching the recognition dawn on his face, followed by disbelief and then something close to fear. Maria, he stammered. But, you're a cleaner. I was a cleaner, I corrected him. Now I'm the CEO of Aita Commercial Services, which provides premium cleaning and maintenance services to over 80 high-end properties in this city. And as of today, I own this building. He seemed to shrink in his expensive chair. About what happened? I held up a hand. I'm not here about the past, Mr. Barnes. I'm here about your future. Your lease is up for renewal next month. Are you going to evict us? I smiled, remembering his words about upgrading the building's image. No, Mr. Barnes. Unlike some people, I don't dismiss long-term relationships for the sake of image. But there will be some changes. I handed him a folder containing the new lease terms Sophia and I had carefully crafted. Your rent will increase to match market rates. The building will undergo major renovations to actually become upscale, as you once put it. And of course, all tenants will be required to use Aita Commercial Services for their cleaning needs. He opened the folder with trembling hands. This rent increase, it's significant. Quality comes at a price, I said using the same condescending tone he'd once used with me. You understand, don't you? He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw the moment he understood. Understood that the woman he dismissed as just a cleaner now held the power to affect his business, his success, his future. I'll need your decision by Friday, I said, turning to leave. Then I paused at the door. Oh, and Mr. Barnes. The cleaning crew starts at 6 a.m. now, not 4 a.m. I believe in treating my employees with respect. Walking out of his office, I felt no triumph, no vindictive pleasure. Only a deep satisfaction in knowing that I had built something meaningful, not just a successful company, but a legacy of respect and dignity for the kind of work I had once done. That evening, I hosted a dinner for all my employees and their families at an upscale restaurant, the kind of place I used to clean but could never afford to eat at. Over 100 people attended, representing dozens of countries and cultures. Sophia stood up to make a toast. To my mother, she said, raising her glass, who taught me that no honest work is beneath dignity and no dream is beyond reach. I looked around at the faces of my employees, my extended family now, and thought about the journey that had brought me here. From invisible cleaner to respected CEO, from powerless worker to influential owner. The next morning, I arrived at my building, just as the cleaning crew was finishing up. Carmen, now our operations manager, was showing a new employee the proper way to clean the executive offices. "Good morning, Mrs. Suarez," they greeted me with genuine warmth. "Good morning," I replied, noting how spotless everything was. "Excellent work, as always." I took the elevator to my new office on the top floor, the one with the best view of the city. As I unlocked the door, I saw Harold Barnes arriving in the lobby below, looking uncomfortable as he passed the cleaning crew. I smiled, remembering Sophia's words from the night before. No honest work is beneath dignity, and no dream is beyond reach. Opening my computer, I began reviewing plans for our next expansion. After all, there were plenty more buildings in this city that could use an upgrade in their cleaning services, and I knew just the company to provide it. The irony wasn't lost on me. Chen Security Solutions, the cybersecurity company I built from a garage startup into a $200 million enterprise, was about to throw me out because I was supposedly a security risk. At least that's what my cousin Peter claimed as he stood at the podium during our annual shareholders meeting. My name is David Chen, and at 45, I was about to learn that in the tech world, the most dangerous code isn't always the one you can see. The board has reviewed the company's technical direction, Peter announced, his perfectly tailored suit a far cry from the hoodies he'd worn when I'd hired him fresh out of business school 5 years ago. In light of recent market changes and David's resistance to modern development methodologies, we've decided a leadership change is necessary. I sat quietly in my chair, watching the shareholders nod along. They'd been carefully prepared for this moment, fed a steady diet of concerns about my traditional approach to cybersecurity. Too focused on fundamentals, they'd been told. Not enough emphasis on flashy AI solutions and blockchain buzzwords. Furthermore, Peter continued, gesturing to my Uncle James who sat smugly at the board table, we've discovered some concerning activities on the company's development servers. Unauthorized access attempts, unusual code deployments. I almost smiled at that. Of course they found unusual activity. I'd wanted them to. Therefore, effective immediately, James Chen will assume the role of Chief Technology Officer, with full control over all technical operations. Security will escort David from the premises and his access to all systems will be terminated. As 2 security guards approached my chair, I thought about the real unauthorized access they hadn't found. About the code that had been running silently in the background for months, documenting everything. About the true security risks that nobody but me seemed to notice. "Any final words, David?" Uncle James asked, not bothering to hide his smirk. He'd been trying to edge me out since joining the company 3 years ago, bringing his Silicon Valley connections and promises of disruptive innovation. I stood slowly, straightening my jacket. "Just one question. Have you finished migrating all our clients to the new security platform?" James frowned slightly. "Of course. Your outdated system has been completely replaced. The migration finished last week." I nodded, picking up my laptop. "Interesting. Good luck then." "Is that a threat?" Peter demanded, but I could see uncertainty flicker in his eyes. "Not at all. Just an observation. After all, you're the experts now." As security escorted me to my office to collect my belongings, I passed the wall of client logos. Banks, tech companies, government agencies, all of them trusting us with their digital security. All of them now protected by James' innovative new system. My phone buzzed, a message from Emily Zhang, my former lead developer, who'd quit when James started pushing his changes. "It's done. Everything's documented. They have no idea what's coming." I smiled, remembering the day 3 months ago when I first noticed the vulnerabilities in James's new platform. The backdoors that his rushed development had left open. The fundamental flaws that his AI algorithms couldn't detect. In my office, my former office, I took my time packing. Family photos, technical awards, the framed piece of paper with the first line of code I'd ever written. The security guards shifted uncomfortably, remembering how I'd helped them set up their home computers, taught their kids basic programming. "Mr. Chen," one of them said quietly, "this isn't right. The new system, it's been having issues." "I know, Steve," I replied, carefully wrapping my old coffee mug. "But sometimes systems need to fail before people realize what they've broken." My phone buzzed again. Sarah from our biggest client, First National Bank. "David, their new security layer is throwing errors. James's team says it's normal, but..." I typed back a brief response. Document everything. As I picked up my box of belongings, Uncle James appeared in the doorway. No hard feelings, David. But tech is a young person's game. Your methods are just too basic. I looked at him thoughtfully. You know, James, there's something my father, your brother, taught me when he was teaching me to code. In security, the fundamentals aren't basic. They're essential. He waved his hand dismissively. Ancient history. Our new AI-driven security platform is light years ahead of your old code. We'll see, I said simply, walking past him. In the lobby, I passed the display case showing our company's achievements, industry awards, security certifications, client testimonials. Soon they'd probably be replaced with whatever buzzword-laden accolades James' new system could gather. My phone buzzed one final time, a message from my old friend at the National Cybersecurity Center. Monitoring in place. First signs of systemic vulnerabilities appearing. Timeline? I stepped into the afternoon sunlight, thinking about the code I'd hidden deep in the system. Code that would protect our clients while exposing the flaws in James' revolutionary platform. Code that was already gathering evidence of every shortcut, every security hole, every disaster waiting to happen. 1 week, I typed back, when their first major banking client runs their monthly security audit. Then we'll see who's really obsolete. Because in cybersecurity, the most dangerous vulnerabilities aren't the ones you find. They're the ones that find you. And James's shiny new system was about to learn that lesson the hard way. The next 5 days were a masterclass in watching a disaster unfold in slow motion. From my home office, I monitored the cascade of small errors that James's team either didn't notice or couldn't understand. The digital equivalent of watching hairline cracks spread through a dam. Another anomaly in the transaction verification system, Emily reported via our secure channel. Their AI keeps marking it as normal variance. I nodded, watching the logs scroll across my screen. The revolutionary AI-driven security system was doing exactly what I predicted, missing fundamental security flaws while chasing sophisticated attack patterns that didn't exist. How's the documentation going? I asked. Perfect. The monitoring system you built is catching everything. Every ignored warning, every misconfigured security protocol, every band-aid fix they're applying. The National Cybersecurity Center's independent audit team is watching too. On day 6, the first major warning sign appeared. A mid-sized tech client reported unusual access patterns in their secure data storage. James's team dismissed it as a training phase in their AI's learning algorithm. They were wrong. My phone rang. Sarah from First National Bank again. David, something's not right. Our security team is seeing patterns that match known attack signatures, but James's system keeps clearing them as safe. Document everything, I'd advised, and maybe have your backup systems ready, just in case. She hesitated. We're running our monthly security audit tomorrow morning. Should we be worried? Let's just say I wouldn't schedule any major transactions for tomorrow afternoon. The next morning, I sat in my home office, multiple screens showing various monitoring systems. Emily and our trusted network of security professionals were all on standby, watching and documenting. At exactly 9:00 a.m., First National Bank began their monthly security audit. It was comprehensive, designed to test every layer of their cybersecurity infrastructure that was now running entirely on James's new platform. At 9:17 a.m., the first real alarm sounded. The bank's audit tools discovered what James's AI had been missing for weeks: a massive security hole in a transaction verification system, one that could have allowed millions in fraudulent transfers to slip through undetected. But that was just the beginning. As the audit dug deeper, it found more problems. Critical security protocols had been misconfigured. Basic encryption standards had been implemented incorrectly, and the AI system that was supposed to be protecting everything, it had been trained on flawed data, marking legitimate threats as safe while flagging innocent transactions as suspicious. At 10:45 a.m., First National Bank's Chief Information Security Officer made the call. They were switching back to their backup systems, my original security protocols, immediately. By noon, 3 more major clients had followed suit. My phone rang. Peter, sounding panicked. David? We need to talk. The system. There are some issues. Really? I replied calmly. The AI isn't handling everything perfectly? This isn't funny. We're looking at potential regulatory violations. The Banking Commission has already been notified. I finished. Along with the National Cybersecurity Center, they're very interested in how a certified security system could have such fundamental flaws. Silence on the line. Then, what do you want? Check your email. I just sent the board a complete analysis of the system's vulnerabilities, along with documentation of how they were introduced and ignored. You might want to pay special attention to the section about James's development process, particularly the parts about skipping basic security protocols in favor of innovative solutions. Another call came in, a news network wanting comment on the story that was about to break. Major security firm's AI system compromises banking security. By evening, the full scale of the disaster had become clear. James's system hadn't just failed, it had actively endangered our client's security. The only thing that had prevented a catastrophic breach was the monitoring system I'd secretly left in place, quietly maintaining basic security protocols while documenting the failures of the innovative replacement. The emergency board meeting was called for 8:00 p.m. I attended virtually, watching James and Peter try to explain how they'd missed such obvious security flaws. The AI was supposed to catch these issues, James insisted. The algorithms were fundamentally flawed. I interrupted, sharing my screen to show the technical analysis. Because you forgot the first rule of cybersecurity. No AI can replace sound security fundamentals. The board members, many of them technical experts themselves, reviewed my documentation in stunned silence. Every vulnerability, every ignored warning, every arrogant dismissal of basic security principles, all meticulously recorded. Mr. Chin, the board chairman said finally, I believe we owe you an apology, and perhaps a job offer. I smiled. I'll accept, on 3 conditions. First, we return to a security-first development approach. No more rushing to implement trendy solutions without proper testing. Second, Emily Zhang returns as Chief Security Architect with full authority over security protocols. And third, I paused, looking at James and Peter. We conduct a complete audit of all executive technical credentials. It seems some resumes might need verification. 1 month later, I stood in my restored office, watching our teams reinstall the proper security systems. James had resigned to pursue other opportunities after it was discovered that his Silicon Valley experience wasn't quite what he claimed. Peter had been reassigned to a non-technical role, his dreams of disrupting the industry tempered by reality. Emily sat in her new office next door, leading the development of our next security platform, one that would use AI properly as a tool to enhance fundamental security rather than replace it. The industry had learned some valuable lessons. Articles were being written about the dangers of prioritizing innovation over security fundamentals. Regulatory bodies were developing new guidelines for AI implementation in critical security systems. And our clients, they'd stayed with us, impressed by how our original security protocols had prevented disaster. First National Bank's CEO had personally called to thank me for maintaining those hidden safeguards. Last week, I received a message from a young developer who'd worked under James. I finally understand what you were trying to teach us. Security isn't about flashy solutions. It's about getting the fundamentals right every time. I pinned the message to my wall, next to my father's old advice about basic principles. Outside my office, I could hear our teams working, properly testing each security feature before implementation. Because in the end, true innovation isn't about replacing the fundamentals. It's about building on them. And sometimes, the best way to prove that is to let the flashy shortcuts fail on their own, while keeping a very careful eye on the fallout, determined to shut down. My name is Dr. Sarah Collins, and until yesterday, I was just the dreamer running an underfunded research program at Hamilton Memorial Hospital. Today, I'm the scientist who developed a treatment that could save millions of lives, if my father-in-law doesn't kill it first. This is ridiculous, Dr. Richard Hamilton declared, tossing my quarterly report across the boardroom table. 3 years and $2 million spent on theoretical research with no practical applications. The board can't justify this expense anymore. I kept my voice steady, despite the fact that my hands were shaking under the table. The neural regeneration protocol shows promising results. In mice, he interrupted. Meanwhile, we have real patients needing real treatments. This isn't some academic playground, Sarah. This is a hospital with budget constraints. The other board members nodded along. They always did. Richard Hamilton wasn't just chief of medicine, he was hospital royalty. His father had founded Hamilton Memorial, his family name was on every wing, and his word was practically law. He was also the man who had never forgiven his son Mark for marrying a research scientist instead of a proper surgeon like himself. The FDA review, I started, is a waste of time, Richard cut in. Just like this entire program has been. I moved to terminate the neural regeneration research effective immediately. I second the motion. Dr. Peterson chimed in quickly, always the first to agree with Richard. I looked around the table at the faces I'd known for 3 years. Dr. Chen, who had initially supported my research. Dr. Whitman, who had called my early results fascinating. All of them avoiding my eyes now. All in favor? Richard asked. Hands went up around the table. This was it. 3 years of work, countless late nights, breakthrough after breakthrough that nobody would believe in, all about to be destroyed by a man who hadn't set foot in a research lab in 20 years. But Richard didn't know about the email I'd received last night. Before you vote, I said calmly, you might want to check tomorrow's FDA announcements. Richard paused, his hand halfway up. What are you talking about? The phase aita trial results. They came in last night. I pulled out my tablet. Would you like to see them now or wait for the public announcement? There's no way the FDA has reviewed. Fast-track approval, I interrupted, given the unprecedented success rates in human trials. The ones you said were a waste of time. The room went silent. Dr. Chen slowly lowered his hand. You're bluffing, Richard said, but there was a note of uncertainty in his voice. I connected my tablet to the room's display screen. The neural regeneration protocol showed a 94% success rate in restoring function to damaged spinal cord tissue, complete reversal of paralysis in 82% of test subjects. The FDA panel called it, and I quote, the most significant breakthrough in neurological treatment this decade. The data scrolled across the screen. Charts, test results, before and after scans showing damaged nerve tissue regenerating under my treatment protocol. That's impossible, Dr. Peterson whispered. No, I said quietly. It's just science you didn't believe in. I turned to my father-in-law, whose face had gone from confident to ashen. The pharmaceutical companies are already calling. Licensing offers starting at $300 million. But since you're about to vote to terminate the research, I started packing up my papers. I'm sure Mass General or Mayo Clinic would be happy to take over the program. Now wait just a minute, Richard sputtered. This is Hamilton Memorial Intellectual Property. Actually, I pulled out one more document. I filed the patents personally. The hospital only owned the research rights as long as the program continued. Terminate it, and the rights revert to me as the primary inventor. Legal documents appeared on the screen, papers I had drawn up months ago when I first realized Richard would never support my work simply because it was mine. You planned this, he accused. No, I corrected him. I protected my work, because you taught me that's what I had to do. The boardroom erupted into chaos. Dr. Chen was frantically reading the trial results. Dr. Whitman was already on the phone with someone. Dr. Peterson looked like he might faint. And Richard just stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Why didn't you tell us the trials were this successful? He finally asked. I tried. For 3 years, I tried. But you were too busy telling me what I couldn't do to listen to what I was actually doing. The door opened and Mark burst in. My husband looked like he'd run all the way from his neurology department. Sarah, is it true? The FDA approval? I nodded. He swept me up in a hug, not caring about the stunned board members. I knew you could do it, he whispered, even when they didn't believe. Dr. Collins, Dr. Chen interrupted cautiously, perhaps we should discuss the future of the program. With appropriate funding increases, of course. I looked at my father-in-law, still sitting in his chairman's seat, still trying to process how his wasteful research program had turned into the biggest medical breakthrough in decades. I said slowly, we need to discuss more than just funding. We need to talk about how Hamilton Memorial approaches innovation, about who gets heard in these boardroom meetings, about what we might be missing because we're too busy looking down on ideas that don't come from the usual sources. Richard opened his mouth, probably to object, but for once, someone else spoke first. Dr. Collins is right, Dr. Whitman said firmly. We've been too conservative, too dismissive. If we want to remain a leading institution, we need to change." One by one, the other board members nodded. Even Dr. Peterson managed a weak agreement. I sat back down, Mark's hand firmly in mine. Now about those budget constraints. The next few hours would reshape not just my research program, but the entire culture of Hamilton Memorial. And my father-in-law was about to learn that sometimes the most important medical breakthroughs come from the very people you're trying to silence. The morning after the board meeting, I arrived at Hamilton Memorial to find news vans lined up outside. Revolutionary spinal treatment approved by FDA flashed across every screen in the hospital lobby. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since the official announcement. Dr. Collins, nurses, doctors, and even patients called out congratulations as I made my way to my lab. Many of them had watched me fight for funding and recognition for years. Now they were seeing the vindication they'd hoped for. My research team was already hard at work, excited but focused. They believed in this project even when the board didn't, working late nights and weekends because they knew we were onto something revolutionary. "The pharmaceutical companies are in conference room 3, my assistant Jenny reported. "All of them. And Dr. Hamilton is waiting in your office." I paused. "Which Dr. Hamilton?" "Both of them." Richard and Mark were standing at opposite ends of my small office, the tension between them palpable. The wall-mounted TV was showing CNBC's coverage of our FDA approval, with stock prices of major pharmaceutical companies scrolling beneath. "Sarah," Richard spoke first, his voice lacking its usual authority. "We need to talk about the future of the program." "Now you want to talk?" I set down my files. "After trying to shut us down yesterday, I was wrong." The words seemed to physically pain him. I let personal prejudices cloud my judgment. Mark moved to stand beside me. "You let your disappointment in me cloud your judgment of her." Richard flinched. "Perhaps." I logged into my computer, pulling up the latest data. The licensing offers have doubled since last night. Mayo Clinic called personally to discuss a partnership, and the Department of Defense wants to talk about applications for combat injuries. All of which should stay at Hamilton Memorial, Richard said quickly. "Why?" I turned to face him. "Because now it's profitable. Because now you can put the Hamilton name on a breakthrough. Because I was wrong," he repeated, louder this time. "And because you were right, we need to change how this hospital approaches innovation." I studied him carefully. "Go on." "I'm stepping down as chief of medicine," he announced. "The board agreed this morning. We need younger leadership, someone who understands where medicine is heading." Mark and I exchanged shocked looks. "They're offering you the position," he continued, looking at me. "Me? But I'm not even a department head. You just developed the biggest breakthrough in neurological medicine in decades. You did it despite resistance, despite underfunding, despite—" He swallowed, "despite me actively working against you. That's exactly the kind of leadership we need." Before I could respond, Jenny burst in. "Dr. Collins, the first patient from the trial is here for a press conference, and she's walking." Maria Rodriguez had been paralyzed from the waist down in a car accident 2 years ago. She'd been one of our first trial patients, and her recovery had been nothing short of miraculous. Now she stood in the hospital's main conference room, walking smoothly to the podium while cameras flashed. "6 months ago, I couldn't feel my legs," she told the packed room. "Today, I'm planning to run a 5K. Dr. Collins didn't just give me back my ability to walk, she gave me back my life." More patients followed, each with their own story of recovery. A teenage athlete who'd been told he'd never play again. A grandmother who could now pick up her grandchildren. A veteran who had regained function after a combat injury. Richard watched it all from the back of the room, his expression unreadable. Later that evening, as the media circus finally wound down, he found me in my lab. "Your mother-in-law called," he said without preamble. "She reminded me of something I've forgotten." I looked up from my microscope. "What's that?" "The day Mark told us he was marrying you, you showed us your research proposal. The early theory behind neural regeneration. Margaret said we should support you, that she could see your passion. I dismissed it as a naive dream." I remember. She also said I was making the same mistake my father made with me, dismissing new ideas because they didn't fit our preconceptions. He picked up a framed photo from my desk, my whole team celebrating our first successful trial. I didn't listen then. I'm listening now. I set down my notes. What are you suggesting? A new research division, not just for neural regeneration, but for all the impossible ideas we've been ignoring. Full funding, complete autonomy, direct board access. You'd oversee it as chief of medicine. And you'd be okay with your daughter-in-law being your boss? He actually smiled. I think I've proven I'm not the best judge of what this hospital needs. Besides, he hesitated. I'd like to get back into research myself, if you'd have me on your team. 6 months later, I stood in the newly opened Collins Research Wing. I'd insisted on dropping the Hamilton name. The hospital needed to show it was truly changing. Our neural regeneration protocol was being implemented in hospitals worldwide. The licensing revenues had transformed Hamilton Memorial's budget from stretched to substantial. But more importantly, the culture had changed. Young researchers now had paths to develop their ideas. The board had been restructured to include more diverse voices. Even Richard had found his passion again, working with a team developing new applications for our breakthrough. Mark thrived in his role heading the neurology department, proudly supporting my work while building his own legacy. We proved that a marriage between two doctors could be a partnership of equals. Margaret, my mother-in-law, just smiled knowingly at family dinners. I told them so, she'd say, watching Richard enthusiastically discuss research with the younger scientists. The success stories kept coming. A quadriplegic patient taking his first steps, a child with severe nerve damage regaining function, each one reinforcing what I'd known all along, that sometimes the most important medical advances come from believing in the impossible. Last week, a young researcher came to my office with a radical new theory about regenerating brain tissue. The old Hamilton Memorial would have dismissed her immediately. Instead, I listened, because sometimes the biggest breakthroughs come from the quietest voices. Richard drops by my lab sometimes, usually late in the evening when most people have gone home. He doesn't say much, just watches the teams work, sees the passion that drives them. I think he's finally understanding what he almost destroyed. The neural regeneration protocol continues to evolve, helping more patients every day. But its greatest impact might not be on medicine at all. It might be in showing that innovation can't be controlled by hierarchy or tradition. Sometimes the most important discovery isn't the cure you create, but the change you inspire. And sometimes the best revenge isn't proving someone wrong, it's showing them a better way to be right. The Hamilton Memorial of today is unrecognizable from 2 years ago. Young researchers flood our halls with new ideas. The board meetings are filled with passionate debate instead of quiet acquiescence. And somewhere in a small lab, another impossible breakthrough is probably taking shape. All because someone refused to be silenced. All because sometimes the most powerful response to doubt isn't anger or argument. It's simply succeeding.